From the Hayburn Building in Louisville, Kentucky, this is Single Payer Radio. The show is a project of Kentuckians for Single Payer Healthcare, and we're an affiliate of the Kentucky chapter of Physicians for a National Health Program. We oppose the corporate practice of medicine and advocate for a national, not-for-profit, single-payer healthcare system. The views and opinions expressed on the show are those of the speakers and not the station. I'm Mark McKinley, a volunteer with the group. Single Payer Radio can be heard on WFMP LP 106.5 on Mondays at 2 p.m., Tuesdays at 7 a.m., and Wednesdays at 11 a.m. You can also live stream our program at forwardradio.org. Many seniors across the country are being forced into Medicare Advantage programs that deliver huge profits to private insurance companies and denied care to many patients. This week's episode of Single Payer Radio is a discussion sponsored by the organization National Single Payer. Kay Tillow, chair of Kentuckians for Single Payer Healthcare, also serves on the steering committee of National Single Payer. This discussion is led by an amazing woman, Mary Ann Pizzatola. She's organizing an incredible effort of New York City public union retirees that are resisting the takeover of their health care benefits by Medicare Advantage programs. It's amazing. Thank you, Kay. Thank you, Dr. Anna Malinow, who is the chair of National Single Payer. And, of course, thank you, Mary Ann Pizzatola. For more information about Kentuckians for Single Payer Healthcare, go to kyhealthcare.org. For more information about National Single Payer, you can go to nationalsinglepayer.com. Thanks for listening.
Hey, welcome everybody, participants, supporters of National Single Payer, healthcare advocates, and labor. We have a very, what we think is very informative and exciting program tonight, and it is on a subject matter that is currently a hot topic in the country. And what is that? That is the privatization, the ongoing privatization of Medicare, and especially as it affects retirees. And we have a guest tonight that has been a essential fireball in New York City, organizing retired workers and the public, pushing unions, believe it or not, pushing her own unions and the unions of the New York City Labor Committee, who are in bed with the insurance companies. And also the mayor of New York is supporting the privatization, taking Medicare benefits that were negotiated in the union contracts and now turning them over to privatization. Keep in mind that the important context of all of this presentation is that Medicare was established in 1965 essentially because the for-profit private insurance industry could not make enough profit. And the government had to step in to create essentially at that time, a quasi single payer system. However, what happened was it left open a gap. And in that gap, workers are now having to buy or have had to buy insurance to fill that gap. Mary Ann, who is our speaker this evening, is fighting to protect her benefits that they had negotiated. And many times when you negotiate a union contract, you actually give up things or take less because you know that you want to include your retiree benefits. These benefits are now on the chopping block. Mary Ann is doing educational work. She's doing organizing work, and it's kind of an inspiration for all people around the country to take a look at what's happening, because rather than as we said, the labor unions fighting on her side, she's actually having to argue with them, which is very important as we move forward in this period. And with that, I will just say that Mary Ann Pizzatola is the president of the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees, which, as I said, is empowering retirees to defend and protect their hard-earned benefits. She is also founder and president of the New York Fire Department EMS, Emergency Medical Services Retirees Association. And under her leadership, the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees has challenged these cutbacks in Medicare benefits quite successfully so far. And they've been able to have 7 wins in the court system of New York. And she's now attempting to get legislation passed and in New York State and New York City to protect those benefits. We should all learn from her, have your questions and discussion, because what is facing Mary Ann in New York City is also facing many other retirees around the country and is on the agenda for the future unless we build a stronger labor movement and a more independent political atmosphere so we can fight this good fight. So with that, I'll introduce Mary Ann.
Thanks, Ed. It's great to be here, Kay and Anna. So yes, I'm Mary Ann Pizzatola. I am president of the New York City Retirees. We started this fight 2.5 years ago. We had learned that the city was looking to change our health care and force us into a Medicare Advantage plan. And we were like, oh no, that can't be possible. Our unions would never let that happen. And then we found, of course, our unions were actually part of that deal. What we didn't know is that they were using the city and the insurance companies were coming in to try to negotiate these healthcare plans and using healthcare as a cudgel in the collective bargaining process, where they would say, we got this great plan for you. It's better than that Medicare and it's free. And that'll free up all that extra money from the city because of the subsidies. And then you could use that for a raise. And they were like, okay. And I kept going, man, we're New Yorkers. No one would ever believe you could get something better than what you got for free. This doesn't make any sense. But sure enough, that's what they were doing. So we investigated it a little bit more and we looked at what it was. And sure enough, it's privatizing Medicare. And I formed a corporation, built a team, and we built a Facebook page, incorporated in the state of New York, filed our IRS paperwork, started the Facebook page, started a website, started a PayPal account for fundraising, and we hired 2 lawyers. So it grew from there. The organizing process was really quite organic. We started an email account with MailChimp so I can put up a sign-up list, and then through social media, we can share it and learn how to find other people. And you tell 10 people, they tell 10 people, and we're 250,000 retirees. Today, at 2.5 years later, I have about 20,000 people on my email list. I have 30,000 people on my Facebook account. I have another 10,000 people approximately on my YouTube, and we are all over the place. And what we did was, by holding Zooms and seminars and educating retirees to the differences structurally between Medicare Advantage and traditional Medicare, the benefits that they have and they relied upon, and that we've had since 1966. In New York City, we were given Medicare, the access to Medicare, by our mayor in 1967, and then they legislated city statute for us to have health benefits that the city was paying for them. But it was important to be able to empower retirees to understand the difference and how to fight back. And what we learned, unfortunately, is we were fighting back our own unions with the city of New York. So what did that look like? We would call our unions and say, why are you doing this? And they kept telling us, but it's enhanced, it's better. You get silver sneakers. We're like, are you crazy? But this is really what they thought. They were convinced they were giving us something better. In the 2.5 years later, we're hearing this from retirees around the country who are asking us for help and asking them how we can help them. And this is really great to be able to do this, to be able to share this message. That is basically how we got started. And we were literally, it started with an email to 40 people, 17 people showed up. We put together a board of 5 volunteers, August 13th. It was a Friday, August 13th. And we had 5 people volunteer to be our officers. We incorporated our organization and took off from there. We believe communication and education and taking our time, patience in educating people. We also created an email list to educate everyone that we wanted to, including the union leadership, as to what they were doing was wrong. That still becomes a problem because they didn't want to ever realize that they were selling off something that we really held valuable, and that they believed that what they were being sold was better when it wasn't. Some of those union leaders have contacted us over the last 2.5 years and recognized that that was a mistake. Others don't want to admit that it was, but we still persevere. We keep trying to share the message, explain the difference, take our time. Even tonight, I'm at an event and I have yet another political person from a union yelling at me that unions can negotiate for retirees and they can negotiate away our Medicare, and Medicare Advantage is better than traditional Medicare. And it's still 2.5 years later, it is still a struggle, but we are still not giving up. And yet this also works in election campaigns. We try to educate our elected leaders about the differences and why it's important to protect traditional Medicare. We have 3 different legislations. We're working on city legislation, a New York state legislation, and a federal legislation. And I am currently in court. As Ed said, I've had 7 wins so far, but that hasn't stopped the mayor of New York from appealing every single one of our cases. The very first case we filed, we are currently now in the New York State Court of Appeals, which is the highest court. We have won twice on that case. We won in the Supreme Court. It was appealed to the first department. We were given a unanimous decision, and yet still the New York State Court of Appeals chose to hear that. We are right now in that briefing process and yet haven't gone to court in that yet. Our second case is a copay case, is because the city tried to make it as painful as possible for us to stay in our traditional Medicare by imposing new copays in violation of the contract. And we fought that as well in court. We got an injunction to stop it. The city appealed that, they lost, and now it's back before the Supreme Court. Our third case is what we call the nuclear option case, and that is where the mayor eliminated all of our choices of healthcare plans because the city of New York did give retirees a choice of plans because they are statutorily required to provide healthcare for every employee, retiree, and their dependent. So some plans are regional and you would have to have coverage wherever a retired person is. The mayor eliminated all of those plans and pushed us into a Medicare Advantage plan. That won this time by Aetna. We were able to get an injunction on that, and we won that case. The city has now appealed that to the first department. So we are in 3 courts, in 3 different cases in 3 different courts. Our legislations are city, state, and federal. And the city legislation is to protect traditional Medicare, which our city council is still not supporting 100%. There's 51 people, and so far I have 18 on our legislation. The state legislation is to protect health benefits of a retired person from being diminished in the likeness of the New York State Constitution provision, Article 5, Section 7, that protects any New York State retiree's pension from diminishment. It was drafted in the likeness of that. And then the federal legislation was introduced bipartisan by Congressman Richie Torres from the Bronx with Nicole Malliotakis, a Republican from Staten Island, that would require you to opt into a Medicare Advantage plan and not be forced into one. So those are our 3 litigations and our 3 legislations. More about what we could do to organize is organizing. That's really where the key is email campaigns, asking people to sign up. We use MailChimp. MailChimp is very easy for us to use. It's you can design it very easy. You can change your fonts, pull in pictures. I could link in our videos from our YouTube, because we do have a lot of retirees that don't do social media, and they'll find that the emails and the YouTubes are a lot handier. And then we put up the sign up form that they can share that email and have their friends sign up. We also do Action Network emails where I can put in a message who are the targets. That would be where I want the email to go to. So in like one that we did, which we'll share with you tonight, it can go to all of your state or federal elected officials. We put all of their emails in there through actionnetwork.org. We write the email. You could even allow the people that are signing up to do the emails to add in something personal to it. Click send and it sends it out everywhere. So that's another tool that we use, as well as holding meetings with elected officials in your area. So what we started doing is we have 51 city council persons in the New York City area. We took our list of all of our retirees and we separated it by city council district. And then I would write each city council person from me to them with copying all of their constituent retirees, saying that we are in their district and we want to talk to them about protecting traditional Medicare. Some of them refuse to acknowledge us. Some of them grant us meetings, and those are the lucky ones because we get the opportunity to educate them. But the ones that don't usually get like another email from us, like every 2 or 3 weeks saying, hello, council person, we still haven't heard from you. You're a retiree, you're constituent retirees, you know, those over 50 plus that like to vote would like to speak to you. We put in a couple bullet points about traditional Medicare and protecting traditional Medicare and privatization and how privatization would have a personal impact. When that doesn't move them, then we take a personal story from someone in their district. Like I have a retired firefighter who is having transplant surgery, and his hospital, he has a kidney transplant. His hospital and his physician do not accept Medicare Advantage. And his doctor and hospital both told him that if he needed another transplant, he would have to find another doctor and another hospital. And for someone who's fighting for his life, that shouldn't be another struggle. So we then video that gentleman telling his story, keep those videos brief, like 10, 15 minutes, and then we send that out to everybody. And if that doesn't tug at your heartstrings, I don't know what does, because now that's a personal story to a elected official in their district. And we just keep doing them and sending them out. And then we put them up on YouTube, and then those go viral, because it hits home when you see someone saying, Congressman, Assemblyman, Senator, Councilperson, I am in your district, and if you don't protect me, this is what will happen to me. Cancer patients, people who are trying to get into the Mayo clinics or Sloan Kettering or specialty facilities that are not accepting these privatized plans, they also need to know, the electeds need to know that if you are fighting a really horrible illness and you need a specialist, many of these privatized plans don't allow you to go to them with this type of insurance. They don't accept the insurance. And then you would either have to pay on your own or have a larger co-insurance if that provider accepted that plan for partial payment or for payment. So we wanted them to understand the difference and the additional burdens and the administrative issues that would be placed upon someone who was already fighting illness. So it hits home to make it personal. And that's pretty much how we did our organizing. And yet we do it on a weekly basis. It becomes literally a full-time job. Email, Zoom calls, well, our Facebook page lives. We do a Facebook Live every Friday. We answer everyone's questions until all the questions are answered. And we empower them to be able to fight back and answer them. And what we also do, which is helpful, is we'll make a post. And we'll say, this is who we're targeting today. This is what their ask is. And then we'll leave the post open and we ask them to write back and tell us what was the responses from their office? What was the pushback that you got? And then we help them answer that pushback so they could call back the next day. And when the person spews the same misinformation, they're ready with a talking point and a one-pager to hit them back with. That's empowerment. So that's how we did it. You're on mute.
So I'm not sure if you're ready for questions or if you wanted to continue telling us a little bit more about your fight. We do have some questions right now, but feel free to continue talking to us, and then we can get to the questions when you're ready.
Okay, great. The hard part, I think, is answering back for the unions. We identify as retired union. We are still unionists, and many of us built our unions. And so for New York City, it's personal for us. We not only built New York City, we rebuilt New York City after 9/11, after multiple tragedies we've had in New York, and we built our unions. And so to have to educate and constantly do fact checking, we did start a page on our website called Debunking BS. And literally, whenever propaganda was coming out, we would take it and rip it apart and explain why it's BS. Fact check and cite and sourcing everything that we can. When they would tell us that there's no problem with that Medicare Advantage plan, we would then bring up the Office of the Inspector General that showed that all of these Medicare Advantage plans were wrongly delaying and denying care, or the Government Accountability Report that shows that in the last year of a retiree beneficiary, Medicare beneficiary's life, that they're leaving Medicare Advantage to go back into traditional Medicare. And I would say, think about that for a second. You don't know what your last year of life is. And if in that last year of life, something is happening to you that's so bad, and you have to leave your insurance to go back into traditional Medicare, change your healthcare, something has to be really dreadfully wrong for you to be doing that in your last year of life. And then that makes them think a little bit. So we do make a point of citing and sourcing. We pull Kaiser Family Foundation sources. We pull up New York Times articles. We pull out whatever we can, news articles, periodicals, websites where it talks about hospitals leaving Medicare Advantage. And this is happening all around the country, and we just keep hitting it home. And then every time another story comes out, we send it to elected officials and we send it to our former unions. This will happen to you. And then, of course, last month, Kay participated in an event in Kentucky, and the rest of us took a busload of retirees, and we went to Connecticut, and we protested in front of Aetna and United Healthcare, and Kay in solidarity did Humana, and retirees all over the country with the People's Campaign were protesting outside other places. So we were constantly protesting. But we did get retirees excited about doing this. And we took about 100 retirees to Washington, D.C. on a day of lobbying, basically. We were met with Pramila Jayapal and Ro Kahana and Katie Porter and Senator Warren, and we went with Adi Barkan and Be a Hero and Social Security Works, and they were all very wonderful with us and joined us in that fight against privatizing Medicare. So I wish I had that same success in my own city, but it's still a fight, and it's a fight that we're destined, we're going to keep fighting. We are destined to fight this to the end. And we do have that support. Our grassroots funding campaign has also been quite successful in that we were able to raise millions of dollars to be able to fight this, and still litigation is quite costly. So we've been able to fund our litigation. And yet we continue. Yes, it is a ferocious battle. Laura, I know Laura.
So, Marianne, I might just start asking questions because one of the things that that I've been thinking about is that clearly there's strong support across the country for what you're doing, and New York City is not the only place where this is happening. Obviously, many other places, and I know that for example in Delaware and Vermont and other places, other states are fighting back. But are you working with other state retiree organizations to end the forced placement of retirees into Medicare Advantage?
Yes, retiree organizations reach out to us from everywhere. We have helped Delaware. We've spoke with retirees in other counties of New York, Connecticut. We've spoke with people from Vermont, Washington, Illinois, Ohio. The calls just keep coming. We can only help just so many people, but we always joke that we need to do a playbook and then distribute this playbook to retirees, because this really does work. even just the starting steps of what to do and how to do it. I think the other thing too we need to educate is what the intimidation would be so that they're prepared for that. For example, I am a DC 37 retiree. The parent unions of me would be AFSCME and AFL-CIO. AFSCME has also taken a position to intimidate our retiree organizations, our parent organizations, intimidate them to not support us, or that they're labeling us as an antagonistic labor organization interfering in union business. It is absolutely insane what they've been doing. And yet you scratch your head going, unions helped the success of Medicare in 1965 to be able to provide healthcare equitably. It took out all of that, the trouble that people were having in accessing medical care in hospitals. If hospitals wanted the federal money, the reimbursements, they had to be able to treat everybody, no matter what their income level was or their skin color was. It was equitable care. And that's all we keep fighting for. And yet everyone wants to take that back from us. But yes, we're actually able to help our very first union that listened to us in the state of Connecticut. And that was powerful when a union president called and said, I'm so glad I called you, but that never would have happened if my retirees wasn't sending us your YouTube videos.
That's fantastic. Sandra Klassen, who is a national single payer member, did ask, do you think that they're worried that the unions do you think the unions are worried that this will render them obsolete, or because they won't be able to negotiate for healthcare anymore?
No, I think they're misled in that they're being told that they have to negotiate or give up. They have to create savings in healthcare. How do you create savings in healthcare without giving up healthcare, without giving up coverage, without giving up benefits? And it's being used as a cudgel. They're saying to the union presidents, you put your retirees into Medicare Advantage and we'll give you a raise. And they're selling them that the plans are better because they're enhanced and have perks that Medicare doesn't have. When I start hearing one union or one employer say the same words to me, I know exactly where they're coming from. It's an insurance agent putting those seeds in their heads because the words are exactly the same, but it's enhanced and it has benefits that Medicare doesn't have.
Right. And so it seems like the solution really is to have a national improved Medicare for all, right? Then we wouldn't necessarily have to be fighting we wouldn't need to have retirees fighting for their health benefits because they would automatically be receiving them, just like everybody else. Other questions. So obviously this has been going on, and there are retirees now that have been forced into these Medicare Advantage plans, right? So is there anything that these retirees can do?
Anything that retirees can do?
Well, because they've already been forced into these Medicare Advantage plans, is there a way to set the clock back or to fight?
You know, that to me, that in helping an organization, a group of retirees that is already forced into that, that's not something we've come across yet. I keep trying to urge them to stop that clock before they're pushed into these plans. And then some of it goes back to their old union contracts as to whether what if there was a promise that was made to them. And I really do have to put a little bit of blame here on the federal government that does allow this to happen, because if there is a federal rule change, and this is something else that we're trying to look into. When that federal rule was changed in 2000, that allowed the secretary this very broad scope to allow for auto enrollment for seamless transition into Medicare Advantage plans. To my understanding, that there was no public open comment period to see what the feedback would be from the public. So there could potentially be an Administrative Procedures Act violation potentially, that maybe we could bring that against the government for not allowing that to happen. And then continuously trying to push people into Medicare Advantage. Why is the federal government not protecting retirees? And I think this needs to be a larger conversation about why this is happening. Why are we trying to empower privatized plans, insurers, into taking over people who work their entire lives in whatever employer or union that they had that was providing them with employer group benefits, forcing them into seamlessly transition them into Medicare Advantage rather than allow them to have the choice of what they want. And I think that does need to be a conversation that we have with the government. I keep tweeting to the Secretary Becerra and I never get a response back, but that would be a good question to ask. Is that an APA violation?
Yes, you're not the only one that Becerra is not answering. I'm wondering, is this the same thing as the egg whips that you're referring to? And I know that Kay has written an article, the employer group waiver plans. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
I don't know if Kay, who has written an excellent article, wants to give us a little bit of background on that.
Yes, well, it's something that I discovered that was a part of the 2003 Medicare Modernization Act, which set up Medicare Advantage, or transformed it from what was Medicare plus choice, the earlier privatization plan that wasn't working because they wanted more money, and set it up as a real giveaway to the insurance industry. And a part of that law in 2003 says that the employer can just automatically put if they have retiree benefits, put the whole group without their consent into the Medicare Advantage plan. And that indeed is what has been happening. Here in Kentucky, our teachers are in Medicare Advantage. Our state employees are in Medicare Advantage. Our school employees, our county employees are in Medicare Advantage. And many of them just lost their right to choose their doctor because Humana dropped the Baptist network of physicians. So people have been scrambling for doctors. And that really is the problem, is that the access to the doctors that you need and the hospitals you need and the institutions and the facilities, you can get a Fitbit and you can get silver sneakers, and they'll send you a meal when you get home from the hospital. Although one of the folks in Kentucky said, yeah, it's just an old TV dinner, costs about 45 cents. But that ability to it's a federal law that these employers can do that, can put people automatically without their consent into these privatized plans. And the last figure that I saw was at least 5.2 million are in Medicare Advantage, not because they chose to be, but because their employers put them there and made some savings. And of course, they offer savings because the companies will take it out in enough denials that they'll make the profit, so they can pass out money along the way. And it's just a terrible destruction of our precious Medicare program. And we need to get everybody in the fight.
Right, because it sounds like what you're saying is prevention is much better than trying to fight once you've been forced into these Medicare Advantage plans. That it's very, very difficult. So somebody had asked, is it legal to force someone to go into Medicare Advantage? And the answer is yes. There is a federal law that makes that legal. And so is this one of the legislations that you're trying to pass or not? Or would this be something different, Marianne?
So there is a federal legislation, that the one that I mentioned by Congressman Richie Torres from the Bronx, and Nicole Maliatakis from Staten Island, that if a Medicare Advantage plan is offered by an employer or a union, that you have to opt into it. I'm still not 100% whether that would provide us with the protection that we're looking for, because it doesn't necessarily, to my understanding, or at least to my comfort level, require that if I don't opt into it, what happens to me? And that my belief is that the federal government should not be allowing me to be removed from traditional Medicare. Hard stop. And I think what we really need to do, absent if that law or any other law is yet would solve that issue, is I do believe we have to organize retirees and people that care about their Medicare future all around the country. Whether you're Medicare eligible right now, you will eventually be Medicare eligible, and you need to take note, and this needs to be on your front burner, not your back burner, and that they need to organize and start stepping up now. Because if we're going to say that protecting traditional Medicare is a Democratic Party platform, which is what I've been saying all week ahead of elections, we can't say blame another party for the destruction of Medicare when we're not doing anything to protect it ourselves. And so we started saying in the past couple of months leading up to our recent election day that we are going to make protecting Medicare a major campaign issue, and that retirees and those that are preparing for their future and expected to have traditional Medicare, because we've all paid a Medicare tax from our very first paycheck, that we need to do something about this now. And since this majority of this population of 50 plus are the ones that vote, and we got the time to make the calls and do the organizing, I guess we need to come out of retirement on a nationwide scale and start organizing those that care about their retirement future health benefits right now. Because that's going to be how we're going to do this. Because if it was as successful as you're telling me that you all learned about us because of the fight that we held, then we need to duplicate this and make a playbook and do this on a nationwide in order to protect our future retirement health care. And that's really what we're going to have to do.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I'm so happy that you're here to motivate all of us. Somebody did bring up the New York Health Act, and you knew that it was going to come up because you're from New York, but interestingly, you don't live there. So maybe you can give us your thoughts on what you think about the New York Health Act.
So we've also had those discussions regarding the New York Health Act and how that can help. And it can help. I think it would help more retirees and active workers that are currently living in New York State, but it still does have an issue that for retirees that do not live in New York State. There is a provision in that law, if I remember it correctly, in that it requires that within 18 months of that bill passing, that there would be a committee that would come up with a solution on how to provide healthcare for those retirees that do not live in the state. And that for me is one reason why I can't yet get behind that. But we are trying to work on a plan and trying to help with ideas, because there were a lot of suggestions that our organization made that the people working on that legislation used to better that bill, improve it in this round, right? So if you want to stay part of that conversation, I think we always should be, in order to get something ready for its future or for our future, you want to be part of that conversation. We do also understand that part of the healthcare, I guess the temporary fix would be for retirees that do not live in New York State would end up staying on their employer plan, and everybody else would move on to the New York Health Act if it passed tomorrow. The problem with that, as we see it, and we've also expressed this too, is many employers or unions who provide these employer group waiver plans, that leverage of the size of the group also helps offset the premium cost. So if you have 1.2 million people that are on a healthcare plan, your premium might be X. But now if you only have 250,000 people, your premium might be Z. And that Z might cost more to the employer, who might be more motivated to try to get cost share out of the retiree, which that still tries to get us to say to the people drafting this legislation, you need to come up with a fix beforehand, because I think that would be cost prohibitive to the retiree as well as the employer. So that was one of the issues. And although there is still some language in some of the New York Health Act that we weren't all that keen on, we're educated that it is still somewhat fluid, and we know that it will probably still be developing and improving. So we're still watching that. We're not against it. We just recognize that for a small population, it's not going to protect everybody, and we still have that one concern, but we are still actively as part of that process. For active employees, it absolutely would. I can't understand why an active employee would not get behind that. It provides them with better healthcare benefits, truly better healthcare benefits. You have a long-term care plan, which if anyone ever took care of a parent or had long-term care, you know how vital that is and how expensive that policy can be. So how interesting it is, though, to be on the other side and to say to someone, I think that plan is better, but we actually looked at this plan, talked about it, and we're told what benefits it would provide in providing them with something equivalent or better than what they actually have, unlike Medicare Advantage. The unions are definitely concerned. Some of their talking points, we've seen their opposition memos, is that it takes away everything that they collectively bargained for. And I'm going, isn't that what you just did to us? We collectively bargained and earned our benefits our entire life and had a promise of Medicare with a supplement in our retirement, and you took that away. They don't necessarily see it the way we do, but we want them to understand that even if there was some sort of a solution in that the employer would still, former employer, former union would hold on to retirees, but active workers would have the New York Health Act or whatever kind of a health act until there was a nationwide healthcare plan. That then still might be a quasi solution in reducing healthcare costs. They believe it would, in some of their talking points, take away their ability to collectively bargain. It does not. There's so much to collectively bargain over. And unions were so instrumental in OSHA, health and safety, workplace issues, wages, hours, and other work conditions. Healthcare is a minor part of that, but what they've been showing is that they're willing to negotiate away their healthcare for raises, and they're not understanding the danger of that. Our generation was always taught to look to protect your future. We worked harder as young people to protect for what we would need later on in life. They're not looking at that because they're not recognizing that they are going to be retired. They're going to be living on less than half of what they're making today, and that their costs will be greatly different. And their needs, their healthcare needs, their ability to travel, their ability to get to the doctor or the grocery store. And that doesn't mean you could send me boxed meals or 12 Uber rides or whatever, accessor rides to a doctor that doesn't take my healthcare plan. Those benefits, of course, we can get from Meals on Wheels and accessor rides in our own communities. That's not what I should be selling off my healthcare for. My healthcare should specifically provide me with healthcare benefits.
Very, very, very well said. Matthew asked a question that I think you've answered, but maybe we can have you answer it again. He asked, how can Medicare Advantage plans be morally marketed by New York City union leaders as better than our existing traditional Medicare and supplemental plan, when numerous National Cancer Institute Centers of Excellence do not participate, including Johns Hopkins, MD Anderson's, and Dana-Farber? So are you saying that it's these union leaders that are getting, bigger raises, and that's the reason why they're pushing this?
I know for a fact, an union attorney said to me, yes. And this one attorney, I'll give you that example. This one union attorney said to us, we were told, put those retirees into Medicare Advantage and we'll give you a raise. And he actually said, and we did. In our own unions, there is still a letter on the Office of Labor Relations website that says that they didn't need, because the unions in the city, under the unions in New York City, under the umbrella of the Municipal Labor Committee. So there's 102 unions in this committee. It's a weighted voting structure. They get one vote for every 250 members. So obviously the two largest unions are the ones that control the vote in that organization. These organizations negotiated healthcare savings that they agreed upon in a 2014 and the 2018 agreements. However, the letter that's on the city website says that they didn't need to utilize Medicare Advantage for any savings benchmarks, that those benchmarks were met. What they did do was utilize Medicare Advantage to finance a fund that has been misused by both the mayor and the municipal labor committee in ways that it's not supposed to have been used, i.e. they used it for collective bargaining purposes rather than its intended purpose, which was to pay healthcare premium for active workers and under 65-year-old retirees. When that fund became short, they needed a funding mechanism, and thus they chose Medicare Advantage, because that money that the city was going to be spending on Medicare supplements would now be given to them for the active worker and under 65 premiums. That is why they did that. So if I were to say that they did attempt to sell off Medicare supplements for retired workers to pay for active worker premiums, I wouldn't be lying. But that's why they did it. And yes, I think Matthew knows that answer.
Wow. That's really demoralizing, actually. Harry Baker has a question, and he's asking that his understanding is that anyone can opt into traditional Medicare at retirement. They can then purchase Medigap insurance. Is that your understanding? And if they have a progressive union, it can bargain for employer-paid Medigap.
So in the city of New York, and I can't answer this question from most other jurisdictions, but in the city of New York, the city is bound by statute to pay for our healthcare up to a certain benchmark. And the city does offer us multiple plans. You would get your traditional Medicare, and you are required to enter Medicare when you are eligible. The city does give us a reimbursement for that Medicare B premium. And they also provide you a choice of Medigap. You can go into Medigap, or if you choose to take a Medicare Advantage plan, they offer those too. But it is your choice. And every year around open enrollment, the city has a summary plan description book that says, choose the plan that's best for you and your family. Never has it been in the city's history did they force you into a plan. It's always been your choice. So is it that anyone can opt into a traditional Medicare? Yes, in New York City, at least, you can opt into traditional Medicare with a supplement, or you can choose to take a Medicare Advantage plan. If they have a progressive union, it can bargain for employer-paid Medigap. Well, and in New York City, we have that. And it's not necessarily that it was bargained. It was just ever since Medicare was given to us by our mayor in 1967, you had Medicare. The city in a memo wrote that it wasn't going to duplicate benefits. And so it carved out your full healthcare plan and only paid for the 20% that Medicare didn't provide. So depending what jurisdiction you're in, Harry, I would say if you did have a progressive union, and it truly was progressive, that it would want to maybe pass a resolution to protect traditional Medicare and do something like what Vermont did and pass a law. And I think Delaware just did the same thing to prevent privatization of Medicare as well. So good luck to you, because that I would love to see that happen. We should do that nationwide.
So in fact, I think Harry is putting together such a resolution. So
yes, Harry.
Oh, Harry. You know, I think that when people it's employers tell them they're going to put them into Medicare Advantage, they do have the ability to opt out, but the opting out forfeits their retirement health benefits. That's the problem.
Yes.
I mean, you can get out of it, but you don't have the kind of money to be able to purchase the Medigap and the drug plans on your own, and you lose the benefit of your service that was given to you as a part of
yes.
years of service. So yeah, you can get out, but at the cost of losing your retirement healthcare benefits, and that's what we have to stop.
Yes. Well said, Kay. Let me touch on that briefly. Yes. What's happening also is that municipalities and former unions are saying to you, you can opt out, but you opt out to nothing, meaning you would go back to your traditional Medicare. And that's like our third litigation. You could opt out of Medicare, out of Medicare Advantage, but you opt out to nothing. They were compelling us to waive our city benefits. We would lose our Medicare B reimbursement. If we had families, they lost coverage too, which meant if I chose to stay in traditional Medicare, I would lose my Medicare B reimbursement, premium reimbursement. I would have to purchase a supplemental plan on the outside for myself. And that's if I could get one, if I was in a state that allowed me to get a plan without pre-existing conditions or under 65, because those are two issues that you will find if you're not in one of 4 states with the guarantee issue right, meaning like Maine, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, you are guaranteed to be issued a plan regardless of whether it is open enrollment, it's not open enrollment, you have a pre-existing condition, no matter what your age, you're young and on disability. The other states, you're going to have a very difficult time getting into a supplemental plan and other of those conditions. And if you do, the cost will be so prohibitive, you won't be able to go into it. So yes, Kay, 100% correct. You can opt out and you will most likely opt out to nothing. And if your family is on your plan, you will also have to purchase insurance for them. And that's what the mayor did for us in our last case, and we also won that case. And then now we're in the first Department Court of Appeals. The city appealed their loss because the judge barred them from doing that to us. So keep that in mind. But I think what we should do is have each other's backs. If Harry's going to wage that fight, we should all be able to like email everybody for him too. And he would get millions of emails to all their electeds.
I'm sure Harry's listening and taking notes. Somebody asked, an anonymous person asked, any legislation pending to permit return to traditional Medicare from an Advantage plan and be able to get a better regulated Medicare gap coverage plan until we win Medicare for all. And that's the problem with the supplemental plans, is that there is no guaranteed issue when you leave Medicare Advantage, except in about 4 states. I think Connecticut, Maine, I don't know if New York is one of them, but most states do not have that guaranteed issue once you leave Medicare Advantage and want to sign up for a Medigap plan. I don't know, Marianne, did you have another answer for that?
I am not familiar with any other legislation other than the ones that we are doing. And then Dan had mentioned this. I do not know the status of Ro Kahana, Mark Pocan's legislation removing the name Medicare from Medicare Advantage plans. I think that should happen as well. There was a hearing, I guess about 3 weeks ago, where they were talking about Medicare Advantage again and the misleading advertisements that we are, of course, being bombarded with 24/7 and will probably be through December. But we're actually talking about spoofing that Martha ad with where she's in that pink muumuu, because we want to also get like the actors unions to stop the actors from doing those darn ads. Yeah, just bad.
Yeah, that would be brilliant, actually, to do that.
But, that's one of the things that the ads never tell you, is that if you go into a Medicare Advantage plan, if you later want to go back, you have lost your ability to do that without underwriting, your ability to be free to purchase a plan without having to account for pre-existing conditions, and it will most likely be too expensive for you to buy. And it's a terrible deception. We in Kentucky introduced a piece of state legislation, because this is something that you can do on the state level, is tell your state that you want to be one of the states that allows for people to be able to return to traditional Medicare without any punishment. Of course, we didn't get it passed, but it was an educational kind of thing to raise it within a legislative body and to take it to the public, because we need the fight everywhere to show them how corrupt and bad it is that this private companies are taking over our healthcare and millions and millions and millions of people are being hurt. And
Yes.
many will not survive. I mean, that's why we called this session Fighting for Our Lives, because I see it that way, that Marianne and her group, and, sometimes on their walkers with their canes are in the streets. And it's a serious, serious thing, because they will not get the care if they are pushed into a Medicare Advantage plan that denies them the ability to see their doctor.
Could I just say something too, is that I think that from what you're talking about, and when we discuss this issue and we talk about the internal dynamics of the unions, I think it's crucial that the messaging that you're doing does include the rank and file members, because they're going to be the next on the chopping block, and you need to win them over to the idea that everybody is in this together, and that the argument that they're going to get something because they screw the retirees is just blatantly anti-union. You talk about being anti-union or disruptive. That's like criminal. And that if you join them, the least you could do, or the minimal you could do, is you could neutralize the ones who may be on the side of Adams and I call them the fake union leaders. But you could also be able to win many of those people over, because that's the future. The fight is going to continue on, because this is not going to go away. This is, and we have to win the rank and file union members and change the union leadership to move in the positive direction. You can see the energy that the unions could have to win this. And now it's bifurcated, it's confused. And I think that's the other beauty of what your messaging could do is win over the rank and file.
I think one thing that we should say is that there are many unions who are with us on this.
Yes.
It's not that everybody has taken the wrong road.
Right.
One of the things that Marianne put together was a letter from 35 union leaders in her area backing their position and speaking out on behalf. And of course, that really is what we have to do. We have to move the labor movement to take the right position on this issue, help them understand it and help them to push for the right thing, because the reality is all of the members will be hurt by this position. They're next in line to retire into a bad Medicare Advantage plan if we don't organize to do something better. So we have to win the union movement. It's really
we do. You're absolutely right. We shouldn't be unfortunately, I think that was part of management's scheme, was to pit actives against retirees to divide. And we keep trying to educate them, and they keep pushing back. And I do believe, and it's not everyone. Thank you for saying that too, because we have a lot of unions supporting us because they know the difference. They see the difference. They see the lies and the gaslighting. And we're trying to educate them that they were given misinformation and they trusted it, and they allowed it to continue without fact checking it or pushing back on it. But once we showed them that there was a problem, they should have run with it, and they're not. And that's the concerning part, is because they're continuing to dig their heels in and push forward to their own detriment. And while it's causing us to continue to fight, it is going to hurt their future. And we're trying to protect us both. And they think we're crazy for that, but we keep saying them, we've been around the sun a few more times. You might want to listen. We know what we're talking about.
Marianne, someone early on in the webinar asked, did the Medicare Advantage plans send money to the unions or to the city for this? And it sounds as though they didn't really need to. That really was not necessary, that the Medicare Advantage plans didn't need to be sending money to the unions. But I think that it wasn't necessarily the money, but the reality, as Kay says, is that the costs of healthcare are going through the roof. And so the unions and employers are looking for any way to save money. I mean, that is a reality of life. I mean, what's happening in New York with that fund is I mean, that's something separate. That's just corruption, really. But the truth is that, the healthcare costs are going up, and the way to address that is to have a national single-payer healthcare system that would really be addressing the root problem here.